Hi, welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David and this is my ally Rites.
Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about all the black cards in the Battle for Zendikar set. This guide will help you evaluate cards for the limited format, so this means draft and sealed. And remember, the pre-release event is also a sealed event. We're going to take you with us in how we evaluate cards during the pre-release. So we will do this a little bit different than most people do. Most people use all the rankings like E, D, C, and then minus, plus, that kind of stuff. We're going to evaluate them by dividing them into 3 tiers and also dividing them by color, of course. The first tier will be tier 1. These are the cards that are really special. You really want to play this card, so you might even go into that color just because of that card. The really big bombs and stuff.
Yeah, or unconditional removal.
That could be, Then you have tier 2, those are the good cards. You might, well, if you play the card, you will certainly play them. Or, well, if you have a lot of those, you will be drawn to that color. Then we have tier 3, and those are the cards we could play. They're fillers, to fill out the mana curve, for example, playable. And of course we will put some cards aside. Those are the cards we really don't want to use, either way.
Exactly, so let's have a start and look at the common cards. Our first common is Bone Splinters. For 1 black we get a sorcery, and as an additional casting cost to cast Bone Splinters we also have to sacrifice a creature, then we get to destroy target creature. This is actually a really powerful removal card because it can hit pretty much any creature except if it's indestructible. On the downside, you're losing this card plus the creature that you had on the battlefield.
So you do need to sacrifice, which you do need a creature. You don't want to sacrifice something big. It's also sorcery speed. If it would be instant speed, it would of course be much cooler. You can use it when you attack your opponent, so he can't block, or you can use it when he does attacks. And when you want to remove it, you can. Or maybe,
not the case
maybe
here.
he pumps the spell. You can't do that.
No, so it's very conditional, but it's very powerful. So tier 3.
I think I would play it if I would be in black, but tier 3.
Yeah. Then we have a Sludge Crawler. For 1 mana we get a 1/1, devoid and ingest, and for 2 mana we can give it +1/+1 to the end of turn. We have to remember that if we pay 4, then he gets +2/+2 to the end of turn. Initially you would think, hey, this is pretty nice because in subsequent turns you can grow this creature when you're attacking and your opponent doesn't know if it's going to grow. On the other hand, it costs a lot to pump it.
I think it's a close call, but I think I would put it aside. If I would really need some ingest for my exile and processor engine stuff, I might play it, but I think a 1/1 for 1 usually isn't very good.
No.
Pumping it in turn 4 will only result in a 3/3, which isn't that impressive.
Especially because you're not doing anything else that turn.
True, so yeah. I think I would put it aside.
Yeah, agreed. Then we have Altar's Reap. For 2 mana we get an instant, and as an additional cost to cast this spell we sacrifice a creature, then we get to draw 2 cards. So it's kind of the same as Bone Splinters. We have to sacrifice a card, and in this case we get to draw 2 cards. I would say tier 3.
Yeah, but this one is instant speed, so you could use it as a sort of a combat trick. Well, you couldn't really use it as a combat trick, but when you block and you sacrifice a creature that blocked, which would have died anyway, you can still draw 2 cards. So that makes it a little better. But well, of course, Bone Splinters is also very good because it's very powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we have Culling Drone. For 2 mana, we get a 2/2 creature with ingest and devoid, so it's colorless. Of course, ingest could work very handily in your deck, so tier 3.
Yeah, exactly. Just being a 2/2 for 2 already means that it can work very well in smoothing out your mana curve if you're missing out stuff for your 2 mana. 2/2 is nothing to sniff at, and of course, yeah, it's got the ingest, not bad. Then we have Kalastria Healer. For 2 mana, we get a 1/2 with Rally, so whenever this guy or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Now you might think, wow, that's going to be great, you know, it's a 2-point life swing. However, we would say put it aside because for 2 mana and 1/2 is not going to do anything on the battlefield. It's not going to trade with anything, and additionally, those 2 points of damage just not going to be enough. Even if you're playing a lot of allies, then maybe it pushes it into tier 3 as playable, but by itself it just doesn't do enough.
Then we have Complete Disregard. For 3 mana we get an instant with Devoid. and you get to exile a creature with power 3 or less. That's the problem, 3 or less. Still, it's removal, pretty conditional, but tier 3.
Yeah, it's yeah, as you said, it's removal, so you will have targets to use it on. The question is it a target you want to use it on? So that makes it a little bit trickier. Then we have Dominator Drone for 3 mana. We get a 3/2, which I'm pretty happy with already. Devoid and Ingest, so it's good if you're going for that engine. And when he enters the battlefield, if you control another colorless creature, each opponent loses 2 life. Okay, 2 life, that's a little bit more relevant. There's a good chance you will have a colorless creature, so I think it's actually pretty good. Tier 3, because you can use it as a filler, but I wouldn't go into black for it.
No. Then we have Grave Birthing. For 3 mana you get an instant, target opponent exiles a card from his or her graveyard, so you need to be able to do that. And you can put an Eldrazi Scion creature token onto the battlefield, and you draw a card. So it does replace itself, but it's pretty conditional. You have to be able to exile a card, otherwise it's dead in your hand.
Yeah.
So I would put it aside. It's too conditional.
Yeah, you have to pay the mana, and you have to have that card in the graveyard.
And essentially, you will only be able to put a single-use Eldrazi Scion ramp card into play.
Which is not impressive. No. Then we have a Swarm Surge for 3 mana. We get a sorcery. It's a colorless with Devoid, and creatures you control get +2/+0 until the end of turn, and colorless creatures also get first strike. When you look at it in the first case, you would say, hey, this is actually really good. You're going to have all these little guys and they're going to be bigger. But it's a sorcery, which means your opponent's going to see it coming a mile away. And maybe you can do a little bit of extra damage, but you won't be able to trade with this. It's not a combat trick. And in and of itself, it's just not going to be enough to swing or change the combat math. So I would say put it aside.
Yeah, me too. Then we have Nirkana Assassin. It's an ally, a 2/3 ally, to be precise, for 3 mana, yeah. So that's okay. And whenever you gain life, it gains Death Touch. Well, that won't happen a lot. No, it could happen sometimes. Still, just the body is good enough to make it tier 3 as a filler.
Exactly. There's not a lot of cases where you're going to get instant speed life, so the chance that you can surprise people and make it into a combat trick is just so situational. Just be happy that it's a 2/3 and just fill out your curve if you're missing decent 3 drops. That's it. Then we have Voracious Null for 3 mana. We get a 2/2. And for 2 mana we get to sacrifice another creature and put 2 +1/+1 counters on this guy, and you can only do that in sorcery speed. I'm also going to give this guy tier 3 because it has good potential. Just being a 2/2 is not too exciting. It's not terrible either. But what's important is that we can sacrifice something smaller and then it becomes a 4/4. And a 4/4 is actually a really relevant body.
That is true, and it could also become even larger after that. I really hated sorcery speed and it costs you some mana. But okay, it's okay. Tier 3.
It's not great. It's not great.
Then we have Dutiful Return. For 4 mana, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Of course, pretty conditional, especially in the sealed format. You need 2 creatures you would want to get back from your graveyard, so you will essentially gain 1 card by doing this, but only conditionally for 4 mana. So I would put it aside, but it's not too bad, but I think I would put it aside.
Yeah, the situation is very good in a very small utopian scenario, because you first need to have cast your great big creature, and it has to have been removed, and then you can take it back into your hand, and then you still need to be able to cast it. So that's way too many hoops to jump through to make this handy. And then you might say, oh, this is great because my opponent's going to be playing Ingest, so then they're going to exile my cards from my library, so maybe my big fatty, maybe. And then they're going to have their processor, which means the processor is going to take the card from the exile, is going to put it back into my graveyard, and then I can use this to return it back to my hand. I mean, you know, yeah. That's possible, but there's far more likely that it's going to be turn 4 and there's just nothing in your graveyard, and then you're going to be sitting there with that card in your hand.
True. Then we have Mind Raker. For 4 mana we get a 3/3 creature, which is colorless because of the Devoid. And when it enters, it's a processor. You may put a card from exile into it's your opponent's graveyard, and each opponent discards a card. Oh, that's okay. It's a 3/3, a nice body, so tier 3. The processor ability, well, of course, you have to jump through some hoops, and he discards a card. He gets to choose the card. Not too great, but okay, nice.
Yeah, that's good filler. Yeah. Then we have Meyers Malice for 4 mana. It's a sorcery. Target opponent discards 2 cards. It also has Awaken 3 for 6 mana. You immediately I say to myself, you know what, we're going to put this card aside because you're paying 4 mana and discarding a card, which is this card obviously, to cast this effect, and your opponent also gets rid of 2 cards, so you're losing 1 card paying mana, they're getting rid of 2 cards. The effect is just not big enough, and to pay an additional, 2 mana to get a 3/3 is pretty good, but the card has to be good on its own. It can't just be good with the Awaken, because it's very expensive. 6 mana.
I think I wouldn't use it. I think I would put it aside.
Let's put the card aside.
Not what you want.
No.
Then we have for 4 mana the Silent Skimmer, a 0/4 flyer with the Void.
For 4 mana?
For 4 mana, yes. And when it attacks, defending player loses 2 life. So it can attack, it's a 0/4, but it couldn't trade with anything.
No.
Only the player loses 2 life. It is a flyer, it can stop the bigger flyers, well, not the 4/4s of course, who die against it. Well, it's the tier 3, it's not that good, but...
I kind of like it because when you're attacking with a flyer, even if they block it, it doesn't matter, you're still putting in 2 points of damage. It's kind of like it's unblockable, except for the fact that it can't trade with anything on the defense. Situationally good, but mostly I would say tier 3 because it is a pretty decent filler card, but it doesn't push me into black if I've got multiple.
True. Then we have Demon's Grasp. For 5 mana, target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. You can get rid of some pretty big creatures, not the biggest ones of course, but it's good removal. I would put it in tier 2.
Yeah, awesome. I really like these kind of effects. You know, it hits indestructible things as well. -5 is big. It hits pretty much everything except for the most extreme large Eldrazi, but everything that's normal. And plus on top of that, you can still hit the Eldrazi's later on if they've taken damage before the end of the turn. So there are some shenanigans you can do with that to make sure you can still kill big creatures. All in all, take it. Yeah, okay, but afterwards, after the combat. All in all, I would say pick it highly. This is decent, very solid removal, especially for common.
True. Then we have Geyserfield Stalker. For 5 mana, a 3/2 with Menace, so your opponent can only block it with 2 or more creatures. And it has Landfall. When a land enters, it will get +2/+2. So then it will be a 5/4 during your turn. Okay, it's okay. Menace is nice. It's a tier 3. It's not great, but okay.
Yeah, it's a filler card. If you got nothing better for 5, then play this card. But also, once again, tier 3 doesn't push you into this color. Not close. Kalastran Nightwatch. For 5 mana, we get a 4/5. And with this, whenever you gain life, Kalastran Nightwatch gains flying until the end of turn. Once again, the odds that you gaining life aren't very big. So you basically have a 4/5 for 5 mana, which is pretty good actually. Yeah, it's actually really good because it's going to kill most things and it can block pretty much everything except for the most extreme cases. So I would say, yeah, if you're in black, you definitely play this card, tier 2.
Tier 2.
We've now arrived at the uncommons, and the first uncommon is Vampiric Rites. For 1 black, we get an enchantment, and for 2 mana, we get to sacrifice a creature, gain a life, and draw a card. I like this. It's I wouldn't go into this color for it. Tier 3. I think if you've got a lot of little guys or you've got a maybe aggressive strategy at the beginning, this card allows you to sack those little guys when they're not so useful anymore, gain you life and draw you cards. I kind of like it, but it's still a filler card in my opinion.
You can use the ability Instant Speed, of course, but that's a nice thing about it.
Yeah.
I think it's not that strong. Okay, tier 3, but I think I wouldn't really use it. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Then we have Carrier Thrall. For 2 mana, we get a 2/1 vampire, and when this guy dies, you can put down a 1/1 Eldrazi Zion token, which of course you can sacrifice for a colorless mana. Decent filler, I would say tier 3, not too excited about it. What do you think?
It's okay, it replaced itself with some single-use ramp effect. Yeah, it's okay, I would put it in tier 3 of course. It can trade with 2/2s, nobody has 1/1s, well almost nobody. Yeah, it's okay, tier 3. Then we have Transgressed the Mind. For 2 mana we get a sorcery. Target player reveals his hand. You choose a card from it with converted mana cost 3 or greater and exile the card. Of course, exile is pretty relevant with all the processor stuff. So I would put it into tier 3. Of course, you lose a card, he loses a card, but it's okay.
Yeah, also you will be able to hit the bigger threats right at the beginning of the game because you're doing this. You can do this in turn 2 already, and you can see your opponent's hand, which means you can see what kind of strategy they're going in. So tier 3, but it's actually pretty decent. I think it's pretty
Then we have Zulaport Cutthroat. For 2 mana it's a 1/1, and when this one or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Not that interesting. For 2 mana, a 1/1, I wouldn't play it, I would put it aside.
Put it aside, yeah. You might think, oh, but I'm going to have loads of little Eldrazi Scion tokens, I'm going to be sacrificing them for mana, and they're going to be losing life, I'm going to be gaining life. The problem is this guy's not going to do anything on the battlefield by himself, because it's just a 1/1. And you need to be able to get into a position where you have all these Eldrazi Scions, and you want to sacrifice them for a big effect, which means you're already getting a really big effect, and you have a good board state already. So this is just peanuts next to that. Indeed, just put it aside. Then we have Hagra Sharpshooter. For 3 mana we get a 2/2, and for 5 mana we can give target creature -1/-1 till the end of turn. Instantly I say put this card aside, because paying 5 mana to destroy probably a 1/1 Scion is just not going to cut it, and you're going to have to pay 10 mana to destroy a 2/2. No.
And for 3 mana a 2/2 is just, with a stupid ability, I would put it aside too.
Exactly.
Then we have Malakir Familiar. For 3 mana we get a 2/1 flying dead touch. Pretty nice. Whenever you gain life, this one gets +1/+1. It won't happen
until end of turn.
Until end of turn. But I really like flying dead touch 2/1 in the air. Pretty nice. So I would say tier 2, but I think David would even put it in tier 1.
I'm going to put it in tier 1 because it's flying with 2 powers, means it's going to be early. Turn 3 after turn 4, it's going to be doing a lot of damage, very hard to block. On top of that, even if they can block and they have a 4/4 for instance, they're not going to want to trade with this little guy because they're going to have a 4/4 angel or something great. And then this thing with Death Touch is always going to trade. On top of that, if they have an Eldrazi, a big Eldrazi, and you're on the defense, they're not going to want to attack into it. It does so much work in so many phases of the game. I love it. If I get 2 of these, it's pushing me into black.
Okay, nice. Then we have Retreat to Hagra. For 3 mana, it's an enchantment. When a land enters landfall, then you get to choose one. Target creature gets +1/+0 and death touch again, or each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. It's okay, it doesn't do anything just by being there on itself. You need a lands. It's nice. You only can do it during your turn in your main phases to get the death touch. Tier 3. It's playable, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's basically very conditional. You're making one of your guys unblockable. That's basically what it's doing, and to tell you the truth, that's not very impressive. However, to fill out your curve, tier 3, it's acceptable. Yeah. Bloodbond Vampire is next. For 4 mana we get a 3/3, and whenever this ally gains life, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on Bloodbond Vampire. I would say tier 3, just because 3/3 for 4 is nice to even out your curve. If you gain life, sure, you got a counter, which is better than getting +1/+1 to the end of turn. But I wouldn't hold my breath for it. It's still decent by itself, tier 3.
Yeah, then we have Rising Miasma. For 4 mana, all creatures get -2/-2. It's a sorcery, of course. So this includes your creatures.
Yeah, until the end of turn.
Until end of turn, yeah. It's okay. It's removal, but really conditional. Only with 2 toughness it removes. It also has Awaken 3 for 7 mana. I think that's too much. So I'll put it into tier 3.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is removal, and 2 toughness will hit a lot of stuff, so it's pretty good removal. Doesn't push me into the color, but if I have it, yeah, I'd rather have targeted removal that can hit the big stuff, but this is definitely something that will that has a good chance of making the cut. Then we have Skitter Skin. For 4 mana, we get a 4/3. Colorless Eldrazi drone, and it can't block though, but you don't want to use it to block because it's got 4 power. You want to attack with this guy. And for 2 mana, we can regenerate it as long as we control another colorless creature, which of course there's a good chance we will have that. If we don't, it's still 4/3 attacking and defend, well, just attacking. And if you do have the 2 mana and the colorless thing, it's going to be impossible to block because you're just going to be able to regenerate it.
I would also put it into tier 2.
Tier 2, yeah, definitely. If you're in black, you're definitely playing this card.
Then we have probably the nicest uncommon card. It's Grip of Desolation. For 6 mana and instant speed, also nice. Exile target creature and target land. It also has Devoid, so even if you see a creature which has protection from more colors or something, it's colorless, so you can just do this. So you get rid of the best land and the best creature your opponent has, and getting rid of a land is pretty relevant in this set, I think, because people really need a lot of lands. Well, in most cases like 8, they would like to get to 8, and yeah, destroying a land is just very smart.
And destroying the best creature, obviously. It's not even destroying, it's exiling, so that's really good for 6 mana. It's a great effect. And you know what's even better? If they put all their awakened counters on a creature and then you just exile target creature and the awakened land, and then you basically destroy 2 of their creatures. You exile 2 of their creatures, which is just so sweet. Those are the uncommons. Let's have a look at the rares. We start off the rares with Painful Truths. For 3 mana, we get a Converge sorcery spell. You draw X cards, you lose X life, where X is the number of colors you use to cast this. So basically, once again, it costs 3 mana, but if you're playing 2 colors, it's going to be you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. For 3 mana, I'm not too impressed by it. I definitely wouldn't play black because of it, but it probably will make the cut. If I am in it, I'm going to give it tier 3.
Me too. Then we have Ruinous Path. For 3 mana at sorcery speed, we get to destroy target creature or planeswalker. Also, for 7 mana, which is kind of steep, we get to Awaken 4. Okay, it's also a possibility late game, but this would be tier 1 because it's just great removal. Getting rid of any creature is already great, and of course you can also target the planeswalker in the case this happens.
Yeah, nice
card.
Nice versatility. If you do have the 7 mana near the end of the game, sure, then you can obviously also get a creature for it, a 4/4, which is not bad, but the fact that just already on turn 3 you can destroy anything, any creature or any planeswalker is really big. Definitely pushes me into thinking, hey, I want to be playing black if I draw this card. Then we have Wastelands Strangler. That's for 3 mana, we get a 3/2, pretty decent. And when it enters the battlefield, put a card opponent owns from exile into their graveyard, and then a target creature gets -3/-3 till the end of turn. The body's pretty good, and the ability, if you're going for the processor route, is also really good. I would say tier 2.
Me too. Then we have Smothering Abomination. For 4 mana, we get a 4/3 flyer. And this is great, but then the drawback comes. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. In a lot of cases this will be difficult for you. Yeah, you could also sacrifice this one, of course, if you don't need it anymore, but then it will be just a dead card. But whenever you do sacrifice a creature, you do get to draw a card. So it does replace itself. I would say tier 3 because sacrificing creatures is just not what you want to do in sealed.
Yeah, it's you would say it's super powerful. Yeah. If you can't, let's say you're looking at your cards and you have a lot of Eldrazi Scion tokens, this one might get bumped up to 2. Then you definitely want to play it because the fact that it's a 4/3 on turn 4 and it's flying means it's going to probably get in around 8 points of damage to your opponent before it has to sacrifice itself, and probably sacrifice something else before that. You're going to be drawing 2 cards out of it. I think it's pretty good. I think I might even pop it up to tier 2, but once again, very powerful, and that's because it's very situational.
Okay. Then we have Ghoul Dress Overseer. For 6 mana we get a vampire creature, 3/4. It's flying, this is nice. And when a land enters the battlefield, other creatures you control gain +1/+0, or if the land is a swamp, they get +2/+0. It's a pretty nice ability. It's other creatures, so it doesn't pump itself. It's a 3/4 flyer. If it would have been a 4/4, I would put it in tier 1, but now I put it in tier 2. Yeah. 6 mana for a 3/2 flyer, or 3/4 flyer. It's okay. It's a nice card. It's a good card.
Doesn't push me into black, but if I'm in black, then definitely playing it. Then we go to Defiant Bloodlord. For 7 mana, we get a 4/5 flyer, and whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Now we're talking big flyer. The blue has an equally large flyer, which is also 4/5. These things dominate in the air. Nothing can trade with them in the air, and they're guaranteed to almost finish the game pretty much. I would say tier 2. It would have been tier 1 if not for the fact that it's 7 mana to cast, and it's not a 9/9 trampler or something, you know?
Yeah. It would, yeah, like you said, the life gain could have been very great, but you don't gain a lot of life, so it's just tier 2.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have a look at the mythics now. Our first mythic is Drana, Liberator of Malik here. For 3 mana, we get a 2/3 flyer and first strike. Now that alone already makes me think, wow, this is really, really good. I want to be playing this for sure. But then we see the ability that Drana has, which is whenever Drana, Liberator of Malik deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. This is sick because Drana has first strike. That means that when she attacks, she's going to deal damage first before all your other creatures. Then all your other creatures are going to get +1/+1 counters, including Drana. And then all your other creatures are going to deal normal damage, and they're going to be pumped from the +1/+1 counters. Plus the fact that she's flying also means she's going to be able to deal damage or at least get through and attack with impunity without getting blocked too easily. All in all, tier 1, amazing card.
Yeah, I'm sure it really pulls me into black. If I draw this card, most likely I will be playing black. I think almost certain I will be playing it. Flying is difficult, they can block it easily. It's also an ally. You can put it down with white maybe, with allies, and then have a lot of creatures. It's just great. I think it's a great card.
With everything actually, when you think about it, it's got with the Scion tokens, it will work. It'll work with big things, with small things. It doesn't matter. Drana is doing massive amounts of work.
True.
Love it.
Then we have Malice Reignited. For 5 mana we get a Planeswalker with 5 loyalty. Its +1 ability is you draw a card, you lose a life. That's very nice, drawing a card. Then its -3 ability is destroy target creature. Anything, also very strong. Yeah. Target opponent, its -8 ability, target opponent gets an emblem which says whenever a player draws a card, you lose 2 life. Well, I think I wouldn't even play it for the emblem. It's pretty nice. Well, when he draws one, you draw a card, it's already 4 life, but that's not that great. I think destroying a creature and drawing cards is the most important thing he does. Yeah. Tier 1.
I agree. Tier 1 all the way. You draw Malice and when you're casting it already 5 loyalty, and then you can +1 it right as it comes in to make sure it's 6 loyalty. So they're going to have to attack with a lot of stuff just to put a dent in it. It's going to be really hard to remove. And should they have something really big, that -3 is just, it's so sick. I love it. It's really wonderful. Alright, well those are the mythics. Let's have a look at the conclusion. In conclusion, I'm not too impressed by Black. Black has a couple of really good cards, but a lot of mediocre cards. I was expecting more good flyers, good death touch creatures. I was expecting cards to be a little bit more efficient, and as we saw before in the analysis, a lot of cards are tier 3. They're good for filler, but they don't have the mass to be able to say, yeah, this is going to be a solid deck, a solid primary color. Rites, what do you think?
I'm thinking the same. It has some really great removal, but also in uncommon and in rare, so it's hard to come by. I think I would only play it if I see some really great cards we have seen in it. I did see some of the best cards in the set. In the colors, of course, are also very strong, but in this color there are some really great cards. And if I draw those, then it would be enough to play Black with some of the fillers of tier 3.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now we're going to ask you guys to subscribe because it allows us to make more videos, lets us know if we're doing a good job. Also rate and comment this video, talk about the cards we just saw, just put a comment down in the text below. Also join us on Facebook and Twitter, we can have more personalized discussion about these cards and the set. What do you think? Maybe after the pre-release, what kind of experience did you have with Black? Maybe we're completely wrong, maybe we're on par, just let us know. Also, after the jump, you're going to see some more videos about Battle for Zendikar, review of the colors, and a guide, so stick around for that. I think that's it, right, Ruud?
That's it.
Alright, so thanks for watching. I'm David.
And I'm Ruud.
And this was Budget MTG Decks.